Guys, fantasy football season is just about over, which means if your league has a last place punishment, someone's going to be carrying that out pretty soon. Now, of course, you have your classic punishments, right? You've got the Waffle House where you have to sit there for 24 hours and every waffle you eat takes either a half hour or an hour off the time you have to be there, depending how sadistic you are. Or maybe you make your last place finisher take a stuffed animal out on a date. Or maybe you go with the true classic of making them take the SAT. These are all great punishments, tried and true, but I wanted to look at some other punishments, maybe more unique or ones that I personally haven't heard of. So I asked you guys, I put the question out there on Instagram and said, what last place punishments have you seen or participated in the past? And man, there were some interesting ones. Now, as you likely assumed by the 2 bags of Jack Link's beef jerky behind me, 1 bag of original, 1 bag of teriyaki, this video is sponsored by Jack Link's. And you guys are probably familiar with their slogan, feed your wild side. So what we're gonna do for this video is I'm gonna read off a bunch of punishments that you guys sent me, and I'm gonna rate them on the wildometer, or the wildometer, whatever you prefer. I'm gonna rate every punishment on a scale of 1 to 10 based on how wild I believe it is. So let's get started. Last place buys dinner for all the boys at whatever restaurant the winner wants. Certainly not a wild punishment, but definitely an expensive one. I mean, most fantasy leagues are bare minimum 8 people. So that means you're buying dinner for at least 7 other guys, probably 9 other guys, maybe 11 other guys, not including yourself. And the winner could be really mean here. I mean, yeah, you could take everybody to McDonald's and that's still gonna be like, what, probably 200 bucks for all those people? Or the winner could say, hey, we're going to a steakhouse and yeah, you might be bankrupt at that point. As far as the wild scale goes, it's definitely pretty low. I'll give it a 3 just because it is pricey and I mean, that's wild in itself, but definitely not a crazy punishment. Now, this is a little bit of a spin on a classic punishment. Take the SAT, but I'm a high school teacher, so if I lost, it meant I'd have to do it with my students. Of course, this is just the normal SAT punishment for 90% of this league. But if this one guy had this punishment, that would be pretty funny. Definitely not breaking the wild scale though. I mean, I've heard of this punishment before. It's just funnier in this context. So I'm gonna give that one a 1. Drinking a gallon of milk, then running a mile. No stopping. I actually had a lot of people send me this one, even though it's not what first comes to mind when I think of like common stereotypical fantasy football punishments, but I guess it might be one. This sounds awful. I mean, can you even drink a gallon of milk without throwing up like before you even start running? I thought that was impossible, let alone having to run after. I mean, you are gonna feel awful all day after this. Apparently, the creativity of this punishment isn't necessarily there because so many people said it to me, but it does sound horrible, so I'm gonna give it a 4. The 1 chip challenge. I've never personally done the 1 chip challenge. I've seen a lot of people suffer pretty bad with it. Honestly, the milk mile probably doesn't sound too bad after you do the 1 chip challenge because at least you get to drink the milk. I think this one I'm gonna give a 4 as well, just because there's definitely an aspect of physical pain that's coming in here, especially if whoever finishes last in your league is just not a spice person. I mean, you know, there are some people out there who they see seasoning and they run the other way, let alone something that's more or less designed to light your tongue on fire. So yeah, we'll go with a 4 on this one. Do a live musical performance in a public setting. We love a good public humiliation. You know, it's funny because obviously I'm a content creator. I make these videos. I'm a personality of sorts. So you guys might think I would have no problem doing this. Like I'd have no shame doing a live musical performance. I would rather die than sing or dance or both in front of a giant group of people. I can talk sports or make videos in front of however many people is humanly possible. I will not do this. This would ruin me. I'm gonna go with a 5 here just because this strikes a personal chord, and this is also so much fun for the other members of the league to watch you do this, and it's gonna get documented, it's gonna get saved forever. Just a horrible, horrible thing for anybody that is not comfortable singing or dancing in front of people, which is, I would say 99% of the population, unless you're drunk. I guess there was no disclaimer that you couldn't be drunk. Locked in a room with spiders and couldn't leave until I wrote "The winner's name is my lord" 100 times. So the end of that, I'm guessing you have to write like "Dave is my lord" 100 times if Dave were to win the league. This one can't be real, right? Like there were some punishments that people sent me that I left out because they were obviously fake and just looking for attention, but then there were some that I kept in because they were on the borderline and maybe somebody is psychotic enough to actually carry this out. This is a 9. This sounds horrible. It would certainly be a 10 if I found out these spiders were like actually dangerous, but I'm guessing this is just like your normal creepy crawly spiders, maybe a bunch of daddy long legs or something to that effect. But either way, spiders, man. Absolutely not. The loser has to cover themselves in peanut butter and go to the dog park. What is wrong with you guys? Like, what kind of a psychopath goes to a dog park with the obvious goal of having a bunch of dogs lick them for as long as possible? You're probably gonna end up on some kind of registry for this. I don't know which one. So I'm gonna go with a 9 for this one as well. This is pretty wild, just for different reasons. Oklahoma drill versus 4-star linebacker at our school. Neither had pads. Now, I can obviously tell this is a punishment that was done in the past and is not a feasible punishment for most people. Most of you are not going to know a 4-star linebacker, but this is absolutely some dumb shit you would do in high school as a fantasy football punishment. And it also sounds like a death wish. I mean, I guess if whoever finished in last place had some level of football experience, maybe you wouldn't die doing this. But either way, it's not gonna be a pleasant experience if you're going up against a 4-star linebacker. Yeah, I'm gonna go with a 7 here, with the potential for it to be even more wild if you are built like a twig or just an unathletic person. We're making someone go to a comedy club with stuff we wrote for them. Now that last part is what's important, at least for me, because I don't think I would have a problem going and doing stand-up comedy. Like, my videos are comedy, so I think I could write a set and at least do it and not have it be completely awful and not feel terrible about myself after. But even if you are somebody who could confidently go up and do a stand-up routine in front of a comedy club, doing it with stuff that you didn't write is a whole different ballgame and very dangerous. I don't know how messed up this guy's friends are, because we could get really offensive really quick with some of the jokes they could write, or they could just write belligerently unfunny stuff and make that as uncomfortable of an experience as possible without actually getting thrown out of the place. I'm gonna go with a 7 here. This one's pretty good. Raising Cane's and 3-mile run. So this goes back to the milk one, basically, where you just have to consume a bunch of something and then do cardio. My question is how much Raising Cane's, because if this is just like a normal, like 1-box meal of Raising Cane's, like I could run after that. 3 miles is a lot, but if my stomach isn't like completely overfilling, I could do that. Now, if this is like you have to eat 3 combo meals and then do the run, that might be an issue. But just going off of how this is initially described, I'm gonna give this like a 3. Adopt a cat for a year. Don't do this. The only way that you should ever be adopting any sort of animal as a punishment is if everybody in your league is actually equipped to and wants to own a pet. Because the way this sounds is that you're gonna adopt a cat, like house it for a year and then get rid of it. Don't do that. It's just mean. I'm gonna give this one a 0 just because I don't want people to do it. Last place had to shave their eyebrows and ask out a teacher. I don't know how those two things are connected. I mean, I do, like shaving your eyebrows, you're gonna look more goofy when you ask out the teacher, but those aren't two things that like necessarily go together. I'm gonna give this one a 6. It's nothing too insane, but it's definitely something that you would remember if somebody you knew had to do this during high school. Like, it would be pretty funny and it would be the talk of the school for a while, but it's nothing that's gonna be like permanently embarrassing, because I'm sure the teacher is gonna know that you're not serious when you're asking, but it's still pretty good, so we'll go with the 6. Break up with my girlfriend on our 2-year anniversary. What? Don't use fantasy football as an excuse to break up with your girlfriend. Break up with her if you want to. And also, don't if you don't want to. Don't let where you finish in fantasy football determine this. Although I guess if you finish last in fantasy football, being single might help you not suck the following year. But no, either way, don't let it depend on this. A lemonade stand in the middle of 4 large University of Minnesota dorms in the middle of winter until $50 sold. I like this. This is good, clean fun, and also pretty creative. You gotta stand outside in the cold. You gotta convince other people to buy a cold drink from you, probably 50 times, assuming you're selling each one for $1. And the entire time people are gonna be looking at you like you're crazy, because why are you selling lemonade in this weather? What I'm wondering is, will the lemonade freeze? And will that help or hurt your sales? Because I could go for a frozen lemonade basically any time of year. I don't know. I like this one though. As far as how wild it is, not super wild, but definitely creative. I'll give this one a 6 as well. Turn up the shower water to the hottest it can go and stay there until all the hot water runs out or 2 hours have passed. That's just my normal shower. You know all those memes where it's like in a relationship, the girl loves when the water is like scalding her skin and the guy's like, this is too hot? I'm the girl. I love hot water, bro. I'm not gonna apologize for it. Now, there are some showers where this doesn't work. Like my shower, I have it on max heat all the time, every time I get in it, because it doesn't get super hot on the max. I mean, it might be too hot for some people, but it's not even close for me. But I stayed in a hotel like last month where the hottest setting actually would send you to the hospital if you stayed in it for too long. So this really depends on how hot your shower is, but I found that most showers, this won't like actually hurt you. I'll go with a 4 on this one. Loser has to donate his sperm to a sperm bank and allow the kid to find him when he turns 18. Believe it or not, I had more than one person send me this. So I didn't know the ins and outs of how a sperm bank works, but apparently there's like a box you can check when you donate that allows your potential child to contact you when they turn 18 so that they can meet their biological father if they want to. That's cool that that exists, but also, holy shit. I mean, that's terrifying, and the fact that more than one person has sent me this tells me that this is a thing that people actually do. I mean, obviously it's a thing that people do, but I mean, it's a thing that people are doing as a fantasy football punishment. You guys are insane. This one gets a 10. I know you don't have to raise it, but this punishment is essentially have a child. What? No, we ain't doing that. Last place has to mow the winner's lawn with safety scissors. Yeah, that would suck. This is a great punishment because this is gonna take a long time and it's just going to physically demoralize you. Like, you gotta be on your hands and knees clipping up this lawn with scissors that barely work to begin with. Now, of course, this is going to depend on how big the lawn is. The bigger it is, the worse this is going to be. But for argument's sake, I'm just going to assume like a moderately sized lawn, and yeah, that still sounds pretty bad. I'll give this one a 7. Even though picturing somebody cutting grass with safety scissors sounds similar to like watching paint dry, this is such a brutal punishment for the person that actually has to do it. It is pretty wild to make them just do this for probably hours on end until the lawn is sufficiently cut. All right, that'll do it. Some of the worst and craziest and wildest fantasy football punishments I've ever heard. Make sure to comment down below if you've ever seen or had a fantasy football punishment that was different or even worse than some of these. And speaking of punishments, our friends at Jack Links are coming up big this year with the Ultimate Meat Roast, with one fantasy league loser set to endure a comedy roasting by Hollywood funny man Rob Corddry. Follow Jack Links on Instagram and TikTok to see how things go down. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.